Welcome back to the Fear and Beer podcast,
where we discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies, and just a little bit of beer.
So kill the lights, grab a cold one, and join us as we dive into this mad world we love.
I'm Nick.
I'm Seamus.
And I'm Jamie.
Like scary movies.
Uh-huh.
Here's Johnny.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You miss me.
Aren't you drinking?
I never drink. Why?
And as a reminder to all listening, if you want to help us to continue growing as a podcast, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on whichever streaming platform you use.
To stay up to date with us and all of our episodes, be sure to follow all of our socials. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Fear and Beer Pod.
Feel free to reach out to us. We love to interact with you all.
And the time has finally come. No, not Horror Nights. That's next week. But the start of our 1 week until Halloween Horror Nights podathon. Woo! Yes, I know. What that is, if you are unfamiliar with us and if you weren't here last year or the year before, I think this is our 3rd year doing it. What we do is we go absolutely insane and we record episodes and we put them out every single day, Friday to Friday. So that way, last week leading up to the event, hopefully goes that much faster. We record these.
I mean, for you guys, anyways. Maybe not for us.
No, well, no. My week goes pretty fast because recording and editing every single
well, that's
week.
right. You do more work for this than I do. I won't ever lie about that.
My week flies by, actually. But no, this is just truly a absolute labor of love. We love talking about this event. First and foremost, we were fans of this event, right? I started listening to podcasts a long time ago, and I kind of discovered Horror Nights podcast, and then COVID happened. Me and Seamus were like, let's start a podcast, so let's do it on Horror Nights, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward, and here we are over 4 years in doing this 1 week till HHN podathon with a lot of people like weirdly thanking us, which like just feels weird because I literally just commented to somebody on Instagram. I do this obviously for everybody else too, but I do it for me because I'm one of those like antsy, like I just can't wait kind of people. So with that last week before something big, whether that's like a movie coming out or, a release of something or an event I'm looking forward to, I can only think of that event for that last week or so. My mind's racing and I'm just so excited. And I know something like this would help me. And this is something that I would want. So I figured, fuck it, let's just do it. Let's just make it. So thank you for tuning in for our 1 week till HHN podathon. This is the episode that's going to be kicking us off. Unfortunately, Jamie's feeling a little under the weather, so we granted her one pass for the podathon.
She gets one.
She gets one. She'll be with us for the rest of these episodes.
Whether she likes it or not.
Yeah, we'll pull her on. She can. If I put her camera on right now, she'd probably be.
Never mind the fact that I miss episodes all the time, but we don't talk about that.
No, but
not you, Jamie. You have no excuses.
It's okay. She doesn't listen to it anymore now that she's on it. So she'll never hear this. I'm sure somebody will tag her now. But either way, no. This is just something that yes, it's a lot of work behind the scenes. Recording, editing, coming up with ideas, taking notes, promoting it, blah, 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 blah. But we do it for you guys. We do it for all the people that love Horror Nights, and it really makes that last week go much faster for us as well. So I'm just as excited to get started with this thing. So the whole process, there's a lot of stuff going on this week. So today we're going to be talking about Guess the House, which we kind of did last year. And this year we sort of refined it a little bit. So we're going to be guessing, or at least spitballing ideas for each of the 10 houses of what we think the facade/entrance is or should be. We're going to mention at least one room or scene we want to see that we think will probably be there. We're going to give you like what we think the vibe, to use cool kid terms, is going to be of the house, and kind of one wish list item that maybe it's in the house, maybe it's not, but it's just something that we kind of want to see. So that's what we're talking about today. The rest of the week, if you want, go onto our socials. You can find the whole schedule and calendar. We got a bunch of really cool episodes coming out this week for you. And like I said, these episodes are kind of right into the point, right? We're not doing as much like our normal beer review. We're not doing full on what did you watch this week? And we don't really have as much segments. The segment is the topic. So without further ado, I am going to crack my beer. We don't have to discuss. Y'all know it's a Pumpkinhead. I got to get right for the season. Got to start prepping. But let's get into Actually, I mean, before we get into the guest of the house, Seamus, did you want to say anything about the podathon and how much fun
No,
you
I think
have
you kind of
recording
hit
every
the
night?
nail on the head. To be honest, a lot of this just from the beginning for me is just gives me something to do. I'm bored. I'm a 9-to-5er, so like, my job is fun, but like I need something to fill my time, and I don't get to run around and gallivant like I used to in my younger years. So this gives me an excuse to do something. So plus, I keep saying we grew up with horror, and I've waxed poetic about this over and over and over and over again, but this is definitely something that I'm super passionate about, and I always have been. I couldn't wait to actually start going to horror nights because, as I've stated before, it wasn't easy for me to really travel much over the last, however many years. But now that I live here, it's definitely easier. And with the Frequent Fear Pass, we can go all the time. So this just gives me an outlet to talk about what I like so much. And it's just pretty awesome and amazing that we have as many of you guys, or you all, listening to us and wanting to hear what we have to say and think and actually give a shit. So that's really cool. Because I've, gone most of my life thinking that nobody really cares what I have to say or think. So it's cool that you guys definitely do, and drive us and want us to, and help us want to do this every year and want to put in the effort that it takes to sit here and talk for an hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes, and then obviously edit things, take pictures, travel, do all this stuff that we need to do for it. And granted, I'm being totally honest when I say, Nick puts in a lot of effort for this, because I don't edit any of it. I just get on this and spew bullshit so you guys can yell and scream at me about it. And he puts all the extra added effort into actually making it sound good and look good. Maybe he'll teach me how to take cool pictures, and I can start doing a little bit more, putting a little bit more effort into it. But I mean, obviously adding Jamie to this over the last year and a half has also helped tremendously. She's awesome, does all the extra stuff that we don't want to do. So like, it was funny when she first started, and Nick was like, all right, you can handle all the social media, right? Like you can just take it. And then from the get-go, it just makes it a lot easier for him, and obviously me in some capacity. But so cool. I mean, I'm glad you guys are here sticking it out with us, waiting, getting pumped up. Only got a couple weeks left, and at the time of recording, we've only got a couple weeks left. But obviously, from the time you're hearing this, we've only got a week left. So
don't break the magic.
We are in the home. Well, I get all confused because we're like, hey, this is the first episode of the podathon. I'm like, this is like the 7th one we recorded. So.
Yeah, we've already done.
So we're so miscombobulated, but
this is why our heads are fucking all over the place now.
Not to break the magic or anything, but yeah. So this is cool. So I hope you enjoy the week, and we'll see you in the fog.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very, very soon. All right, let's get into this. Let's just start with our IPs because, well, that's just how I listed them. So I have A Quiet Place there, starting it up. So let's just
makes sense
right from the get-go. So when we're talking facade, obviously sprung tents are kind of different than what these new tents might be, and they're different than the sound stages and stuff like that. So when I say facade on this episode, I'm kind of referring to like that first thing you see when you walk into the
first
house.
Like entrance set piece.
Yeah.
Whether that's whether it's in front of a tent or if it's in a sound stage, that first big like boom, like this is where you've entered. This is where you're going.
Well, and even stuff like let's look at like Darkest Deal, for example, for last year. Like the facade, like when I'm talking in this episode, the facade, I'm not gonna as much guess. I wouldn't have been like, oh, there's going to be a well and like a concert venue entrance because we've kind of already seen that. We know the exterior facades already of the two sprung tents just from pictures. So I'm kind of thinking like that initial room, that first entrance,
that is fine
kind
too.
of thing. And if you have thoughts on outside stuff as well, but also it's because like we only have the two old sprung tents that might do exterior facades.
True.
We know what they are. And the other ones,
right.
I don't know what they're going to be doing full on. But so when I envision Quiet Place, obviously with these Universal podcasts, they've said certain things, and I have the retention span of a fly. I've listened to them, and I have no remembrance of exactly like what they said is or isn't in these houses, I do not remember. So I'm kind of going in as blind as I probably would have been before listening to those. So when I'm thinking A Quiet Place and that facade, what I want to see when I walk in, I want to see that farmhouse with all the lights strung up with red to like signal to us, because that's their kind of like cue that like shit's going wrong, right? That's how they would alarm their neighbors, or if their family was like out in the farm or whatever. The red lights means like they're under attack, like, either steer clear or be quiet or whatever. So I want that to be our entrance into the house. I want to see either the barn, like corn stalks, red lights, and I want to see it kind of like we're walking into the madness. We don't need to wait for an attack of sorts. But did you have something similar for like an entrance, or do you?
This one's hard because
It's tricky. I
there
don't know where
really
we're
isn't.
dropping.
Yeah, like there isn't any. There really isn't anything from any of the movies that I think like works as that first initial, whatever, whether it's the first scene or whatever you're walking into from out front. My thought would be like, if it's not specifically day one, if it's just like A Quiet Place in general, I would think
it's
you
just
walk.
1 and 2.
Yeah, so I think walking, maybe by that baseball field in that first scene of the second movie, or maybe walking into their town and into their farmhouse, like onto their farm, like might be the first scene. It would make sense, because for the first movie, you're basically spending most of the time at their farm, on their farm.
Yeah.
Whacking my microphone. Sorry, everybody. So that my first thought would be like, you're walking either onto their farm, into the farmhouse, or if they want to maybe switch it up. I like that opening scene in the second one where they're at the baseball diamond. It feels very Stephen King to me when I watched that movie. To maybe give us like that kind of feeling. But yeah, this one's so up in the air. Like, you really don't know which direction they're going to take this, other than you're going to see stuff from the movie.
Yeah. So now, as far as like a specific room or a specific scene in this movie, I have a couple that really stood out to me, and I just don't know how they'd be accomplished, because the two of them are in very small confined spaces. But the part where they're like in the solo, like the corn seed solo
on the silo,
yeah, and they're like being like, I don't know how you could put us in there, but I want to see some sort of representation of the silo and that feeling of like the monster coming down. Or,
well, I mean, if they make like two circular sides to like a room or whatever, and you're walking kind of through the middle of it, and you kind of see them in like corn or whatever, off to the side, you could find a way to maybe pull that off.
Mm-hmm. And then
you wouldn't be obviously walking through an actual cylinder, but like you'd be split off. It would look almost like you're in a cylinder.
And then the other little like small space thing would be, I think it was in the second one when they're in that like almost panic room in that like chamber. That
no, that's the boiler. Yeah, they're in the boiler.
Yeah,
and they shut that big iron circle door.
Yeah. Like those are two rooms that I think really add to the tension and the claustrophobia. But how that can translate into a house, I don't know. But I'd like to see those sort of represented.
My thought would be maybe you're walking into that room and you can look into the boiler and you see them hiding in the boiler. Maybe, I don't know if you'd be in the boiler itself, but they'll definitely probably have some sort of scene in that basement area of the factory or whatever the hell they're staying in.
Yeah.
One other one I'm thinking is that they're really good at doing like outdoor scenes, like wood scenes inside. So I'm thinking that we'll be walking along that path of sand. And you'll see the line of sand on the ground, and then you'll probably see, like, if we don't see the kid actor themselves, we're gonna see like the toy rocket ship on the ground, and you're gonna hear like the sound of the monsters out in the woods when you're walking through there. I can imagine that particular scene from the first movie at some point, because if they're just gonna kind of follow the beats from both movies, you're gonna hit certain points, so you'll have something like along those lines, and then, like you said, we'll be going through major, parts of the movie where the characters are hiding. I wonder if we'll get like the movie, like that audio, the radio studio from the second one, from the end of the second one, where they fight the monster at the very end.
Yeah.
You might get that.
I have a secondary wish list item, but my first wish list item was I want to see the little kid get attacked with a rocket. Like I want to see like like a little dummy kid like with a rocket, and then the rocket sound goes off, and then they have that kid
Yeah.
like ripped on a pulley string or something, and just have him like.
Yeah.
I think that would be a fun little scare. So then overall, I guess, what would you describe the vibe of this house? Because I have my like term that I would kind of put it.
If I'm imagining vibe, how you're imagining vibe, I think with this one, it's gonna be they're gonna go dark with this one, kind of like they did with the Exorcist house last year, where there was very little humor at all, probably no humor whatsoever. So they're not gonna try to be lighthearted with it. It's gonna be dark. I think we are gonna get at least an aspect of the scene where the little boy gets killed. Presumably, since the movie deals primarily with the human characters, like that's kind of the point of the movie, kind of like The Walking Dead is. We're gonna have the monsters in it, but I think you're gonna see a lot of the scenes where humans are being shitheads and humans, like the boat dock scene where they're like kind of all tied up and fighting against those other survivors. And then you'll have interspersed throughout that you're gonna have scenes with the actual monsters, or at least sounds of the monsters. And I this is kind of getting into what I'm hoping for, but kind of where I'm gonna go with it, I think, anyways. But yeah, I would think that that's kind of where we're gonna go with it as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, I think I put my vibe as scary and tension. Like it's gonna be a very stressful style house. That's where the scare factor is gonna come.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of suspense in this one.
Yeah. One wish list item that maybe you're not sure is going to be in the house, but you hope is the one that I have is, other than the kid with the rocket, was I hope that they do cast like the older man character that screams like off in the woods, and you have to like not run because you can't run, but like that causes the monsters to kind of come to him. It's like he must have found his dead wife, and he's like, fuck it, life's over. And then he just like, you have Krasinski's character who's like, please don't. And you could see him just like building and like trying to fight it. And then he just like lets out this huge like screech. And then you hear, the creatures coming. So I hope that that's like my wish list item in there. That's a good scare, because if they put that in a really quiet place and you just like kind of take a corner, and then there's just this character just face to face with you, and then he just screams, it's like, oh shit. But what'd you have for like a one like wish list?
I think this is reiterating what we've talked about before. I'm really hoping that they try unique things with this house, and it not just be, here's a scene from the movie, here's a scene from the movie. I want, like you just said, I want to see them mess with the sounds and trying to make some of that, deadening effect where it's super, super quiet, and they're using material to make it seem even more quiet than it already is. Play with sounds that way. Don't just show a bunch of monster props. Like, use a lot of different scares, whether it's auditory or whatever, because the point of the whole movie is it's supposed to kind of simulate, sound being the bad guy. Like, you don't want to make any noise. So obviously not super quiet. You still need to do certain things, but I do kind of want to see that it's playing on a different level than just the typical prop from movie, scene from movie. Yeah. The other thing though too is I don't know if they'll be able to do it, but I'd love to see them kind of work that bungee effect in with the monsters. So like have one like kind of jump out at you, and then someone's like done up to look like the monster. Yeah. On a bungee. That'd be kind of cool. Then just because what I think they're gonna do is like the puppets that they've done before. Yeah. But it would be cool to see them maybe implement that effect in some way. Yeah. And give them more life, I guess. Yeah, I hope, like you said, I hope that there's a little bit more to it than just scene. No cool tricks. Like, yeah. They built it up as such a like, no, this is like a very different thing. Like we're playing with this whole quiet place aspect, but let's just hope that they really pull those tricks off. So let's move to Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Facade, you walk in on this thing.
What do you want to see?
Well, I've never seen the movie, so I haven't seen the new one
Oh, I got some
yet.
homework.
So I don't really know what to look for from that particular movie. So my thought would be like, when you're first walking in, give us something nostalgic, like give us the firehouse or whatever, and kind of just start with that, just to kind of nail that Ghostbusters like feeling, like, so like, yes, this is Ghostbusters, and then from there work your way into the new movie. Because if you're calling it Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, obviously they're focusing on that, but I think you kind of have to, like, when you're first walking into the firehouse, you see the Cadillac, like the whole, just, you're now in the Ghostbusters movie, and then we can take you from this point forward.
Yeah,
That's the way I think about it.
That's pretty much what I my facade. I put Frozen Firehouse. I want to see it in that winter. Not really. It's not really winter because it's like July, but the frozen aspect of this this firehouse. Give us the iconic look of Ghostbusters that we know, and play with it a little bit. I don't know if you need to create this house beat for beat off of the movie, because I think people more want to just see Ghostbusters more than they want to see Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. So it's
Right.
give us that perfect blend. Make it the Frozen Empire Ghostbusters, but don't make it too beat for beat. But as far as scenes, like you said, you haven't seen this yet, but one scene that I definitely I think will have. I think it has to be a room or some sort of scene in there is the containment unit. There's a part in this movie where they've upgraded the containment units. It's almost like a very scientific experiment lab where they're running tests and stuff on different ghosts. And there's a part of it where there's like a system failure. The grids kind of go down and the creatures and ghosts start coming out of their units. I think that has to be a room where, the alarms go in, the lights are blinking, the red's flashing, and you see like these like windows almost like going down, and these things are coming out at you. I think that's got to be some sort of room in there for sure. But is there something that, like, just from the Ghostbusters world you'd want to see as a room?
Like I said, I
It's
haven't
tough.
same this movie, so I don't really know what specifics. I haven't even seen the other one, so I've only seen Ghostbusters 1 and 2. I've never seen the latest one or the one previous to this one, so I really don't know a ton about them. All I know is Paul Rudd's in one of them, but so no. My thought was, if you're going to do anything from the original movies, that first facade should be something, and have, obviously, the Ecto-1 should be in it. But as far as anything beyond that, I don't really know.
Yeah.
At least specific rooms, anyways.
Yeah, I do. There is one little scene that I hope that there's some sort of food pile with Slimer involved.
Yeah, well, Slimer would be another thing too. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
for the vibe for this, I just put fun. Like, I didn't put anything other than that. I think it's going to be more of that nostalgic, fun house. Obviously, they'll probably throw some scares here and there, but just from the movie and from the franchise, that's kind of what they're aiming towards, I would think. But I mean, do you agree with that one as well?
Yeah, fun, magical would be something I'm thinking. Like, make it feel like you're in the movie. Like, and they're really good at doing that. Obviously, the first Ghostbusters house they did was really good for what it was. It gave you exactly what it should have given you, was that feeling of being in the movie, playing out the scenes that you remember watching on TV or in the movie theater. So I think they kind of have to just follow that same thing. It's just make sure it feels like you're in the movie, and make sure it feels like it's a good time and having a good time. Kind of like the Beetlejuice house was, where, like, yeah, it was spooky, gave you some jump scares here and there, but like really the whole aspect of that house was just to be fun.
Yeah,
and
just
have a good time. Right.
Yeah, and
so
then
I would agree with that.
I had 2 wish list items. We need a large scale Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. We didn't really get it in the first one. We got like just a big head that kind of moved behind a window. And
Yeah.
I know the large scale one wasn't necessarily in Frozen Empire, I don't think. But the point of it was like everything broke out. So like you can get away with putting them in there. And then you won't get this because you didn't see it, but I want to see a room of Nadim's grandmother's sex dungeon. It's like Nadim is this character who is essentially, I think he's called like the Fire Master or something. He's trying to pawn these like little artifacts, and they go into his like grandmother's back room, and it's like all these golden like artifacts, and then they make the joke that it's like the sex dungeon, and it's clearly not. But
I gotta watch the movie because
a
it
very
sounds pretty good. So
it's okay. It's it's nothing great. Afterlife, I really did enjoy. Frozen Empire, it was kind of like take it or leave it. It wasn't the best thing in the world, but I didn't hate it. So there's definitely a lot worse movies out there.
yeah.
So let's get into Insidious: The Further, our final IP, I guess, to an extent. Monsters is IP half and half, but Facade. I'm trying to think because this is a cool like take on Insidious. This is sort of their own spin on it, being that it's in The Further and it's not just like chapter 1 or whatever. So what I'm hoping is maybe we enter through the red door, because I'm hoping that this house essentially takes place in The Further. So I would imagine this like just dark, foggy little entrance, and then like a big bright red door. Whether that's maybe what would be cool is almost like, I'm trying to think of the ride, Pirates of the Caribbean, where you have that fog and you have a projection playing on the fog. I would have like a projection of a red door on the fog where you have to like walk through the door because it's not physical. That would be like my like perfect world situation. But anything in that world I'd like. And then you can maybe have actors on the either side of you with like the lanterns, like they're like whatever they're called, travelers, and you could have some spirits out there. But I want that first entrance to be like you're walking into The Further. But what would you peg as like the entrance?
Yeah, I would assume a red door. I was thinking more of like an actual physical red door, but I've never seen that movie either. I got to catch up on all the Insidious movies, but so I like the idea of having it more of a projection and making it seem more ghostly, ethereal, second dimension type thing. So that would make more sense. But I was thinking just like a solid, like a red door that you're walking through.
Yeah.
Because obviously the last scene should be his domain, right? Like the demon's like lair, whatever it was from the first movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's in for rooms and scenes. We'll jump into that now. I have the lipstick demon's lair. Like I want to see that aspect of it. You saw it kind of briefly in the first one when he's like sharpening his nails and whatever. But in the red door, it spends a little bit more time in there, so you do see some more. It looks like a junk pile, and he's like a factory worker boss. He's like up top in the windows overseeing everything, kind of like the bosses in Jumanji in that shoe store, kind of up top, watching over everything. But I do hope we get something in there where it's like you can see up top in the windows and you see the lipstick monster or lipstick demon or whatever, and then like he goes away, and then you obviously have another character on the floor with you that pops out. So it's like he's kind of like jumping around really quick. But that's kind of a room that I'd want to see. I hope we get some sort of. It's tough because some of the scenes I want to see aren't necessarily in The Further from the franchise. Because I do like that scene in, I think it's chapter 2 with the bride in black, where they like move the bookcase and it's like this secret room that just smells, and it's all these rotting, pretty much cult people underneath the tarps. Very much reminiscent of the scene in Blood Moon last year.
Yeah.
But what are some like rooms or scenes you want to see translated into this house?
I mean, kind of their house on the other side of The Further, like when they're walking through the house and they see all the different like spirits that are possessing that particular area. Like I don't know if it was like sisters or whatever. If I'm thinking the right. If I'm thinking, yeah. I'm forgetting what like movie it was, but like when the old lady, when she goes into The Further, like in trying to save the father, and he's possessed at the end of it or whatever.
Elise?
That area. Yeah,
come on, put some respect on her name.
You know what I mean? Like something like that. Like I want to kind of be walking through and almost like repeating living rooms and stuff with like different spirits. Might be kind of cool. So
I do love that one scene. It is in the first one, and I believe it was in the house in 25, where it's like the family, like the dad's like reading the newspaper and he's like not moving, but he's shaking and he's just like whistling. And then the wife like pulls out with like a shotgun and she's just like smiling and staring. And you don't see the actions of them moving. They look away and you hear a shotgun blast and now they're all dead. Like I'd love to walk through a room where they're like just whistling and that ghostly, very whited out makeup and stuff like that. For the vibe, I kind of labeled this one. I think this is going to be a very scary house. I think it's going to be the scariest one of the year. And I think it's going to be very jump scare based. I think it's going to be a lot of darkness and stuff like that. So I put scary jump scare for the vibe. What would you pin at?
I would have said Black Phone-esque.
Yeah.
Very dark. Trying to play tricks on you through like not loss of sight, but like making it hard to see and see what's going on, using a lot of different tricks, not just darkness, to kind of pull that off. And they did that with Black Phone pretty well, where like you were constantly in not near darkness, but close to pitch darkness.
Yeah.
In a lot of scenes, and they kind of got you that way, and using some of the false walls and stuff like that to get you without realizing that there was somebody there. And then when the lights change, you can see them behind the false walls. So see a lot of stuff like that. And then obviously, like you said, at the end of it, I just want Lipstick Demon in all his glory.
Yeah. Yeah. So for final wish list item, the one that I had is because I just rewatched this one the most, and I get that not everybody likes these movies, and I can see what the faults are in them, but I really do enjoy this franchise as a whole. I think each one kind of brings a new villain that is very, very good. And I was watching The Last Key. It was like the fourth one, I think. But I want to see the key face demon. And in the movie, he's got like these like keys as fingers, like skeleton keys. But when he touches stuff, like they spark. It's like electrical. But I kind of want something like that, where I remember, I think it was in Oddfellows last year, where they have like that grate, and when people drag something across, the sparks come.
Yep.
I want that with the key face monster. So like
that'd be kind of cool.
Sparks coming across. So that's my like one wish list item for this house.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Is yours the Lipstick Demon?
Yeah, probably that's what I would go with.
Yeah. So let's move on to one that was pretty hard for me. And that is Monstros, the Monsters of Latin America. This one took me a little bit to kind of think about, because like the other ones are stuff I'm either more familiar with or just had more in my idea, like in my head of what it's going to be. And like I said, I know this was at Hollywood, but I've refrained from watching the walkthrough videos because I want to be surprised. And then once I go through the house, I'll revisit those and see where they kind of compare. But the facade, just from hearing the story and seeing what it's all about, I would imagine that the intro is La Muerta, because I think she's our guide. I would imagine that she's sort of like walking around reading from a book in like a graveyard kind of thing with the victims from these monsters, like kind of warning us, almost like Graveyard Games, where it's like these people are in the grave. It's a mixture of Graveyard Games and Case Files, where in Case Files, Boris is like pacing and reading from the book.
Yeah.
And then, but in a graveyard setting with La Muerta reading tales of these monsters. But what do you think when you're going to go?
I was thinking kind of like Mausoleum, like you kind of walk in through that and then you're transported from there into, whichever domain each monster kind of runs. Again, I haven't watched anything from LA either. Like I do a really good job of staying off of YouTube and not watching these types of spoilers, because I don't want to really know what's going on going into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm still thinking you're walking into something like that with the host of the house, who's kind of explaining to you, not explaining, but like at least kind of preparing you for what you're getting into. Kind of like what they did with Monsters last year, where you had the guy up top saying, you shouldn't be out at night or whatever.
Yes.
Kind of like, you shouldn't be out here. Like the monsters are out, and when the monsters are out, you don't survive. That type of thing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling.
Yep. And then you kind of go from there.
Yeah. So for the rooms and scenes, like obviously with these different monsters, like we know we're going to get like a designated room towards them, I'd guess. But from what I could take it is La Lechuza. Like I want to see them in this like big nest with like all the bones in the bit, because she's like the bird thing, like this evil beaked bird witch kind of thing. I think I could be confusing them, but I believe that's the correct one. But I want to see like a room where it's just like a nest made out of like bones of the victims, and just just like super gory, covered in blood, like coming for us, trying to like, either feed the young or whatever. But that's kind of all I had for the one room that I think for sure will be in there. But do you have another one?
Yeah, I mean, not specifically, but each monster kind of with their own um, theming. So like each one very different from the last. So like you said with the bird monster, whether it's a nest or whatever, you have that, and then whatever the other two monsters are, like be very specific with each. Don't blend it all together to make it seem like one continuous, room after room after room. Like I want each to be really unique, and dressed up in a really unique way.
Yeah.
But again, I haven't really. I try to stay away from looking at anything that's already been released about it. So I've seen like the one picture or a couple pictures you've sent, but I don't really know what the other monsters look like, and I don't really want to ruin it for myself yet. So, but yeah, I mean, as long as it's very specific to each monster, then I'll be happy.
Yeah. As far as the vibe, I wasn't sure which direction I was going to go. If it was going to be like scary or not. So I put beautiful and like macabre. Like I think it's going to be a very visually beautiful house, but I still think it's going to be very disturbing. Because I think it'll be scary. Obviously, with like Horror Nights, it's going to be some form of fear. But I view this more beautiful and scenic. But I could be way off.
Yeah, I was thinking colorful gore. Mm-hmm. So have it be like a gorier house, but like not just straight, Red. Guts and blood and stuff. Like I want it to be like beautiful is a good word, or pretty. Scenic is another good word. Be more artistic with it than just splatter effects. That's, I guess, my point. Like I want to see it because like Chupacabras was kind of done in that way where it was very, it felt more colorful, or I don't want to say festive, it's not the right word, but like you kind of know where I'm going with it. Like it feels
it was like a party atmosphere almost.
Like it brought you, but it brought you into this culture and in this world. It's not just here's a place with a big dog monster. Like this is an actual like cultural story here that we're trying to convey, and I kind of want that with this one.
Yeah. If you had like one wish list item for this, do you have anything on the top of your head for this one?
I want the costumes to be super out there and unique and different, and have all the scare actors kind of really have their own flavor, not just the same monsters over and over again.
Yeah.
So like not have like, one particular monster and then another particular monster and then a whole bunch of like random scare actors that all kind of like look the same. Like every scene should kind of be its own unique thing. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I had something sort of Blood Moonish where I kind of wanted like a very dark candle visual, like vigil style room. Where it's, down there, religion is such a big aspect, and they don't really touch upon it too much in Horror Nights because they don't want to deal with that. But if you had this, candlelit vigil with people like saying prayer or whatever,
right.
I think that would be a really fun, dark, scary room where you're like, something's going to happen here real quick. I just got to get through this room real quick because this is really messing with me. But that's what I had for Monstros. So let's move over now to Slaughter Cinema 2. Now, this one, like I was mentioning up at the top, we've seen some pictures of like the outside facade, and it's very reminiscent to the first Slaughter Cinema. So that's not what I'm imagining. What I'm thinking is like when I walk into the house, what do I want to see? And when I walk in, movie lobby. I need a movie lobby, classic lobby, smells like,
popcorn
stains and popcorn, like soda everywhere. I want the popcorn machine like popping. I want posters like we did in the last one. I want posters of all these new movies, and I want us to like enter the house like we're walking into one of the theaters or auditoriums or whatever. But is that what you had in mind?
Yeah, I was thinking like the same. Like I don't think you can do it any other way. I mean, the only other thing I was considering is like drive-in, but if it's already going to be like a movie theater, then yeah, you walk into the lobby and it's like an old classic Strand lobby, not super done up, but like at least also not like standard megaplex. Like I want like a traditional single screen lobby, if they're not playing "Let's All Go to the
Yeah, right.
Lobby," then I'm gonna be super disappointed. Like
Yeah.
we need that old time feeling of going to the movie theaters or going to the theater to see the movie. But like from that era.
Yeah.
So yeah.
As far as rooms and scenes, being that this is sort of a compilation-y style house, the only two that we know of that are in there was like the Heavy Metal 3D and then the Mardi Gras Murderers. So I hope that we see some sort of like Bourbon Street kill with beads. I'm hoping that's how like that jester guy kills people, is with like hanging them with the beads or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's what I had in there. I do hope that there's I hope we get some sort of Western style schlocky movie, whether it's like a cowboy aliens kind of thing or just some ridiculous cowboy scene, because that's what I've been itching for a Western for sure. But what are some specific like rooms or scenes you want to see?
I kind of hope the transitions are done in a unique way where you have like the strobe effect, and then you hear like the sound of the movie,
The real,
of the reel doing like the noise on the projector,
Mhm.
and have that like kind of look like you're walking into the next movie, and then they can act out their scene.
Yeah, like it's
I want
flickering
some
out.
other, yeah, and I want some like weird like alien third kind. I don't care what it is, but like some, even if it's like goofy and like little green men, or if it's something more fucked up, or maybe even like a Cronenberg type of thing where it's like that. I like that Cult of the Beast Baby thing. Like I want to see more of something along those lines.
Yeah.
Just go super like B movie, like super 80s B movie with it, and like where everything was just like they would throw something against the wall and see if it stuck.
Yeah.
Back in the day when like they would literally release anything. That's kind of what I want, is those movies that at least that type of vibe, as we get into the vibe discussion of it. But that's what I want. I want that super campy vibe.
So for your vibe, you're going campy. That's
Yeah.
kind of the same thing I had. I put fun, but I put fun parentheses schlocky. Like that's how I want this thing. Just so over the top, ridiculous with these movies, because you can make them as crazy as you want. If they don't hit, it was one room in a house. Like it's your chance to take these really wild swings at things and see if they land.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So your wish list item, is there one thing that you're like, damn, I really hope
because we did talk about this a little bit when we saw those images. We did say that there was a chance this could have some sort of 3D element to it. I almost kind of wish that they would do something universal, like quality 3D.
Yeah.
Because I've done other 3D houses in the past, and a lot of times it's just cheap paper glasses with like special paint in the walls to make things pop. I mean, if they were going to do it, I feel like Universal has the capability and the technology to make it work and do it in a way that doesn't feel disorienting or cheap. And they have like the better glasses. Obviously, most of their rides are 3D rides.
Yeah.
Like if they were actually going to do that, could they find a way to do that? That would be something I wish for. Only because they called one of the movies 3D, and I think you did mention that the other one, the poster says something on it about
it says something like now in whatever
3 dimensions or whatever.
Yeah, I forget the term that they use, but yeah. For my wish list, that is probably not going to happen, but damn, I hope they do. Do some sort of farm oriented one, maybe a Cock-a-Doodle Doom reference, something like that.
I wouldn't mind another Yeti.
Yeah,
like a Yeti sequel.
Yeah, I do really want some sort of farm style like thing, just so I can be like, yeah, I called my shot. I did that thing. But that's strictly for like bragging rights. Let's move now to Goblin's Feast. What do you think? So when we're walking into this, what are you expecting? Like, what do you? This could go anywhere, really.
I think we're gonna walk into like a tavern, like some sort of like tavern scene initially.
Yeah.
Where it might look normal when you first walk in, maybe a few human characters, or like you have that one human character like, no, don't come in, they're feasting, and like being stupid about it. But then like as you kind of work further way into it, obviously the goblins have come out and they're here to play and feast on us.
I like that.
but like I want that like opening like folksy like like not prehistoric is the right word, but like medieval,
Yeah,
like that medieval tavern feeling.
I like that. I think what I was imagining is like the Goblin's Feast is like a holiday essentially. So I kind of I don't know if we're in like a town square or something, but like I there'll be like little goblins or goblin children or whatever like celebrating the high holiday. Like, oh, Goblin's Feast Day is here! Yay! It's like Christmas. It's like Thanksgiving morning. It's they're like you're walking into it and you're like, oh, this is cool. It's like we're at a party or whatever, and then jokes on us. We're the party. So that's kind of how
Yeah.
I see it. I don't know if it's in. It could be in like a little bar. It'd be crazy if we walk into a full on like town center kind of thing, sort of like Dead Man's Pier style. But I think that would be a good way to kind of get the point across as to what this holiday is. So I'd go with that. And I'll keep on going because the room and scene that I had was a drunken tavern scene. So
Yeah.
sort of what you had for your facade. I want there to be this thing where, this ogre is just pounding, pails of ale and stuff like that. Like I want to see an actual bar scene, and you can get that thing
Yeah.
to smell bad. Like that's a
Right.
bad smelling room. So what
Yeah.
other like rooms or scenes do you think?
Oh, I want them to have like a knight or something on a spit, like roasting like a pig, and they're like dancing around it and drinking, and they're like, "Ah," and like they're like, pretending to like eat the guy or whatever, and like, kind of do. I almost want them to do kind of like a Blood Moon esque, like going in and out of buildings. So you're going in and out of the tavern. You're like in the square area, and they're ravaging the town, kind of like how like in Pirates of the Caribbean, where the pirates are like sacking the village, sacking the island. Same idea here, where the goblins are kind of like sacking this village, and you're going in and out, and there's like fire and windows, and they're dancing around, or they're feasting around somebody being roasted alive.
I mean, I do now looking at like the whole list of all the houses. This is the one that could best utilize that aspect that you were saying. Like the setting is a town, and they could. This is really the only house that I think you'd be able to play with that in and out method, because when you look at all the other stuff, like there's not really a way to do that.
Right.
Maybe Monstros, but I don't think so, because they're all different monsters. So like this just being set in a town, I think lends itself perfectly for that style of house. So for the vibe, I put it's just gonna be fun and full of ridiculousness. I think the story is just so bizarre that it could work, making this almost like a festive holiday of goblins and kill and eat us or whatever. Like that's just so out there and ridiculous that I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. I'm sure there'll be, again, like I said, with one of the other houses, I'm sure there'll be scary moments, but I think this will just be more fun. Like we're just going to be laughing at a lot of the set and scenery because it's going to be just so over the top. But what would you think for your vibe?
The word I was thinking is loud.
Yeah. Okay.
Like not just loud and like as noise, just like everything visually. It's just loud. Lots of bright fire, light, music, dancing, drinking, and make it feel like a medieval party, even though it's not the humans partying, it's the goblins partying at the expense of the humans.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good description of what it could be as well. One wish list item then for you. What's the one thing you're like, I really hope they do?
This is kind of the one that I wanted, that big like final end piece, and like instead of having like just goblins and orcs, like you have one big troll at the end. And you kind of like walk out underneath him, kind of like how they had the big blow up clown from
clowns
from Killer Clowns, like have like a big ogre or whatever there, like reaching down trying to eat you or something. That's kind of what I was thinking.
That's cool.
Something along those lines, because I feel like this is the one you can kind of go big and over the top, because it's supposed to be goofy and funny and scary at the same time.
I like that. I put I want a human stuffed like a turkey on like a large table. Like just like, or like a pig, like the apple in the mouth and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun. Have a bunch of little goblin babies around the table with like forks and knives and like ready to eat it.
I was thinking like have victims done up like party games. You know how they have like pin the tail on the donkey for like kids parties and stuff, or like they have like a dude strung up like a pinata, and
Yes.
like
Oh,
little goblin
perfect.
kids
Yep.
are like beating the shit out of it with like a baseball bat or whatever.
That would be perfect.
Something along those lines.
I like that. That I would imagine something similar to that would be in this because it does seem that style. So let's move now to our Universal Monsters house, Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodline. The facade. This was tricky trying to figure out, like, we know the story. I'm just like, I don't know where they're going to put us in the story. Like,
Yeah, because we don't know the setting or anything like that, right? We don't know if it's
no.
in Transylvania or if it's in Bavaria or somewhere else or whatever.
Yeah. So I think I've just from the story, I was like, maybe this takes place like with Dracula's grave, and that's where the Countess Myra is like vowing her revenge. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like a Kickstarter right there. Just because I don't know if like we start in this house mid fight, or is this the Countess like recruiting people to go after Van Helsing, or do we start with Van Helsing talking about how she killed Dracula and then like, or her father killed Dracula or something like that, and that's what kind of ignites the powder keg. But that's kind of what I would have it as, Dracula's grave. But what do you
Yeah, I
think,
was
Gloria?
thinking Dracula's castle.
Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah.
my headphones came unplugged.
But yeah, I think
Sorry. Yeah.
Dracula's castle would be a good spot.
Yeah, so like starting in the castle and then obviously like his daughter or countess or whatever is grieving the loss of Dracula. And then you kind of switch from there immediately into like another tavern scene or something like that where Van Helsing is like, she's, telling the story of how either her father slew Dracula or how she slew Dracula or whatever. And they kind of set up the fight that way. And then they meet at some point in some sort of battlefield. But I think you start kind of going into a castle scene.
That would be nice because
Kinda
we
like
haven't
with,
really
like,
done that one.
Yeah, like with the Bride of Frankenstein, where you kind of walked in that big open scene where
Yep.
there was the big pillar that had fallen over, and you can see her up top, and you're kind of like walking into like the lair of Frankenstein or whatever. Kind of the same idea, walking into like a big darkness and lightning and thunder, and it's like a castle, and you walk into the castle, and then there's the Countess is grieving the loss of Dracula or something like that.
Oh yeah, I like that. Room or scene. Again, like I feel like it's gonna be tough because like
Battle
it's gonna be
scene.
a lot of battling. I do want to
Yeah.
see. I guess this could be more of a wish list item because I don't think it's really possible, but I want to see like the she-wolf transformation.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how we could like work that. Maybe they'll just do a projection of like, like a female figure walking silhouette style and then like bending over and then like howling up, and it's like, oh, okay, and then bam.
Yeah,
next
I
room,
just
she looks
I
good.
just hope it doesn't follow the same beats as Legends Collide. I hope that it's a little different, because we've seen monster versus monster versus monster before, and it didn't feel like there was enough monster versus monster in it. Like it,
Mhm.
like they were like the whole idea of the house was that they were battling for control of this pendant or whatever. So in this one, I don't want it to be just like, here's the Dracula stuff, and then here's the Wolfie stuff, and then at the very end we get like one final spinny door with the characters kind of battling. Like I want to see like, give me a Dracula versus Van Helsing battle scene, like, and utilize all your tricks and your bungee cords and everything else you typically do, and have like them look like they're actually like going at it at some point, whether that's the penultimate or the climactic scene in the house, something along those lines.
Yeah. I for the vibe, I just put I put scary but scenic. So I think this is going to follow suit of most of the monster houses where like they're very beautiful sets. The design of them is really, really good. Last year was on display like tenfold. So I think that with this vibe that'll kind of continue. But is that something? Did you think it would be more maybe gothic-y or?
Yeah, well, there you go. You just took the term I was going to say.
all right.
I want it to feel super gothic. Like, give me, like I said, thunderstorm, darkness, organ music, orchestral music, very, very like not uplifting, but very like over the top gothic darkness I don't know how else to describe it, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes, yeah.
make it feel like classic vampire, classic Dracula. And also make it feel very European too. Like, obviously, like those stories in a lot of ways delve into European architecture, European Gothic architecture, making it feel like you're in like a European castle. Don't make it feel too clinical. And it can be hard to do sometimes, obviously, with with plywood in a house, but they do a pretty good job of dressing it up and set dressing it and making it look like you're in like a 16th century Gothic Austrian castle or something stupid like that. But give me that feeling, like make me feel like you're kind of going, into that world.
Yeah. I think that's the vibe we'll get. So for your wish list item, is there anything specific that you're like, I really hope they get this in there?
I mean, again, I'm not the biggest Monsters fan. We all know that. So it's not like I have anything that I'm super hoping for, but I just overall, I want it like last year. I want to be taken by surprise. I want to be wowed by it. So you need to make sure that opening facade, that opening entrance, that scene when you first kind of walk into the house, that has to kind of like grab you and suck you in. Like last year's house really did that for me. Like when you walk in, you feel the rain and it feels like you're walking into the sewers of France, and you've got the police officer up top, like talking down to the crowd and telling them, what are you doing? Like it felt like you were being brought into the late 1800s France. Like I want to feel like that. So make it feel like I'm being brought into a Gothic monsters story.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. I had two. I had the good old triple scare, whether that's triple or quintuple, whatever the 5 version is of it now. But and I do want to see Van Helsing with like the crossbow, and I want to hear like I want them to do the sound effects where it's like thunk thunk, like you can hear the arrows going by you, and you could even use like the pressure guns, the air pressure, to like
make it feel like they're going by you.
Yeah. So that's what I have for Eternal Bloodlines.
That'd be cool.
The museum, Deadly Exhibits. The facade, interesting. I'm curious. I'm thinking just like the lobby of a museum, and that's where we kind of go in. I don't know if that's too basic, but what did you have in mind for?
So this one's tough because at first I was thinking this is going to be like a grand museum, like a Smithsonian style museum. But now the more we talk about it, it sounds like it's more of like a local museum. Mm-hmm. So it could kind of go 2 different ways. One would be you're walking into a very grand marble lobby, or the entrance of a maybe a pillared facade that looks kind of like a pillared building, like an older building. Looks like it might be in the middle of a city, that sort of thing. Or it could actually even go the other way and look more House of a Thousand Corpsey, where you're walking into like some little roadside museum where some dude, named Jim Bob has collected a whole bunch of like random magical items that he doesn't realize are actually like cursed.
Yeah.
And he didn't realize he was releasing a curse. He just thought he was opening some stupid roadside attraction. Yeah. And it ends up being that he has released demons upon the earth. And the more I talk about that, it sounds like that would be kind of cool. So I don't care which way they go with it. But it'll be one or the other. Like you're walking into some sort of museum, whether it's a grand museum or some like, Jim Bob's museum.
Yeah, right. Here, look at my big old ball of yarn.
Jim Bob's roadside museum.
World's biggest Cheeto.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, it could be something goofy like that. Like, wonders of the Far East, or wonders of the wide world, or whatever, and then like the lost cat of Uthamrab, the Egyptian prince or whatever, some stupid like shit he's come up with, but like it actually is like a bunch of cursed items. I don't know.
I like that because now you got my head thinking kind of like The Conjuring, like where they have all their relics, their cursed relics, something like that. For a room/scene, I was kind of in that vibe where I wanted to be in like the basement storage area with like all these like random misplaced artifacts, and you're walking down the aisle of like all these just storage containers and boxes and crates and all this miscellaneous bullshit. And that's when like stuff is like kind of shaking and coming to life and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
what's one like room or scene that you're feeling?
Well, again, initially when I first started mulling this house in my head, I was thinking like scenes of like dioramas come to life and have like different things like a security guard getting like massacred by like a caveman scene that had come to life. So like, some pro-Magnum dudes like just beating the fuck out of this security guard with like a club or something.
Yeah.
But the more I've talked myself into the other element of it, I kind of want it to be more of like a rundown, almost like not shack, but like a rundown quote unquote museum where these cursed items have raised monsters and demons and other undead and things like that. And, or kind of along the same lines as before, where it's his like family are like the curators and they're getting slaughtered by all these like raised demons and that sort of thing. But this one's super like out there. We don't really know what they're going to do with it. And I think we're kind of on the right track, but they could go anywhere with it. And that's what makes this one so intriguing to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I'm very curious. This one has probably like this and Bloodlines. I'm very, very curious about how it ties in.
Yeah.
With Goblin's Feast, you kind of have an idea. Slaughter, you have an idea. Major Swedes, you sort of have an idea. This is definitely that like unknown.
Right.
For the vibe, I just put scary and eerie. Like very just like, I don't know. That vibe you get when you walk into like one of those older, more rundown, creepier style places, and you're like, this is where I die.
I would have said that here. Or like paranormal. Make this one kind of more of that paranormal house. Mm-hmm. Feels kind of like a haunted museum. Like if you go that route and everything kind of just be like not as overt, but
wish list item for this. So I want like a showroom with various models coming alive. Very Night at the Museum. I know, but that's kind of how I want to see that play out.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Robin Williams-esque dude on a horse. I'm made of wax, Larry. What are you made of?
Yeah, that's what I think that's something that should be utilized in this house.
Something like that, yeah. Or just a Nicolas Cage lookalike. Like,
yeah,
I'm trying to find the Declaration of Independence.
I might have to watch those movies tonight. I love those movies. Triplets of Terror. So the facade. We know from the story it's kind of a birthday party. So I'm thinking you walk in and it's like, I could be way off, but like trailer park, trashy, like rundown house, but like celebrating a birthday party barbecue style almost, where there's like, almost like half deflated balloons and like a birthday cake that's like being attacked by flies. Like just like it looks like a very rundown, abandoned birthday party.
Yeah, I was thinking walking into like a trailer, kind of like they did with Stranger Things a little bit, but have it be like done up like a birthday party, but have it all fucked up. Like there's like body parts strewn everywhere, like heads on spikes and shit. And like signs saying, welcome. Like, how like people will tie balloons to like the mailbox or whatever when someone's having a party, or they used to do that. I don't know if they do that anymore, but kind of like that, have like red balloons tied up and like, happy birthday, whoever.
Have like a banner with their names and their like masks.
Yeah. And then like whatever their last name is, the so-and-so's welcome you to our 33rd birthday or something like that along those lines. And make it feel kind of like super out in the middle of nowhere, Midwestern, somewhere where you could scream, but no one's going to hear you. That type of feeling.
Yeah. So for room and scene, I just put like I want a bloodbath room where each of the three triplets is there trying to like out murder the other one. Like they're all one upping one another to try to like get that real craftsmanship of murder right there. I thought that would be a fun like little room if you're walking in between them and there's like two on one side and one on the other and they're yelling to each other like, hey, check this one out. Look at this. And they're just wailing away or sawing or, cutting or shooting or whatever. I think that would be a fun little like scary, gory, but still like haha moment of like they're breaking the horror with that comedy aspect of like, oh, I got a squirmer over here. Look at this guy. Something like that. What do you think for like one room or scene that you're trying to see in this house that you think will be there?
I'm imagining like a big long picnic table and a whole bunch of like family members all gather on a picnic table, but then like you have a bunch of people like that are victims that are like tied up and like are either being served as like the meal or you could almost take some of those party games that I was talking about earlier and do it
Yeah.
here instead and have them like playing party games with victims, like pin the tail on, the Joker or,
Yeah.
have them beating on a real live,
Human, person.
pinata or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. The vibe I put scary and gory. I think this has to be the gory house.
Yeah, I think this is going to be your Gorehound house.
Yeah. Wish list item. I want to see a body turned into a birthday cake, and they got like candles in their stomach, and they're like blowing it all out, and it's like a happy ending at the end. Like they're, the triplets are there. They're blowing out the candles in this dead body. I don't know if they're going cannibal with it, but I kind of want that like House of a Thousand Corpsey. Like
it feels like they are, but then again, we could just be imagining it because of the Rob Zombie feeling. This just feels like a Rob Zombie house. I think that's why. I would like them to see I mean, again, I know it's kind of like the same old, but I do want them to work in a pig scene, like a pig pen scene. Like I feel like it kind of has to be in this house. Like it almost feels like it's destiny. Like it needs to be there.
Yeah,
it would only make sense.
If they're gonna throw pigs into any of them, it's probably, I would say probably this one.
So let's be disappointed if it's not, if it doesn't involve it in some way.
Right. So let's get to our final house, and that's going to be Major Sweets Candy Factory. What do you want for your facade, like entrance?
Room? A big factory. Walking into a factory. This one's obviously unique because they have that break in between. So I think when you first walk in, I think you're going to be walking into a big brick building. Major Sweets Candy Factory on the side of it, or whatever he called it, how they done a big neon sign. And you're kind of walking into the first assembly line, and then you kind of go from there.
Yeah.
It might be, maybe need to do a little bit more with it than just a brick facade because it can be kind of boring, but I feel like there's a way they can make it work that it feels like you're walking into like an industrial candy factory.
Yeah. I want to see, at least like in that first room, I want to see like Major Sweets and Mrs. Treats there, like welcoming you onto the tour, like very Willy Wonka-ish, like, come on in. Like, this is a great time. Like can't wait to show you what we got in store for you today. Something like that. Like just put them up there. Don't even put audio, like let them just live mic it. Like just let them talk to the people as they flow through and usher them into the factory. Room/scene. I really want to see the factory floor. Like I want to see how everything is being made and stuff like that, whether that's boxes being shipped out, kind of like we saw that kind of track tread in Chucky last year. A lot of those like little push things in like the packaging and stuff like that. But what's like a
I want to see kids like taking over a candy shop. like they've eaten the candy at the candy shop, kind of like a Willy Wonka scene where they're all trying to get the Willy Wonka bars, but instead of like them all just like listening to the dude sing a song about Candyman can, like I want to see like the dude getting like eaten alive by like all these like rabid kids who ate the candy and like they turn into like monsters.
Like, shut up, Tom, give me the candy.
Right. Yeah, I want to kind of see that where they're like just going nuts, throwing shit around, just like trashing the place. I do want to see like an office scene, like Mr. Sweet's office. I want to see what that looks like. Mm-hmm. And I think overall, I want the house to just look like Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory, but fucked up. Like more fucked up than the Chocolate Factory from the movie. Like I want this to be like Universal's version of what Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory would look like.
I like that. For my vibe, I put fun and goofy. I feel like they might do more horror, but I'm going in that goofy vibe, I think.
I want nostalgia. I want it, and that's a weird word to use, but I want it to feel kind of like the Scare Zone did, like classic Halloween. Even though it's not really, it doesn't seem like it's really going to be set in like a neighborhood on Halloween, but I kind of want it to be like a candy factory on Halloween. This is when Mr. Sweets does his thing. You know what I mean? Like he's very flamboyant. Maybe they're having like a Halloween party, like a company Halloween party or whatever. You know what I mean? And he's like handing out the candy at the Halloween party, and he's saying, "Please give it to your children. They'll love this or whatever." And then like obviously it's turning the kids into like bloodthirsty monsters. But I want it to feel like 1970s, 1980s Halloween. Like
Yeah, classic Halloween vibe.
I don't know how else to describe it. But I don't want it to feel like modern, and I don't want it to be too over the top scary. Like I want it to be scary, but I want it to be kind of like Yeti, but maybe not as campy.
Okay. Yep.
So like, that like just push the camp just a little bit, but then like don't go too far into like this is goofy and I'm laughing at everything. You know what I mean? Like I think Yeti definitely pushes the camp, and it should, because that's what it is. But I want this house to kind of be like a little bit of comic relief is fine, but don't go too far in that realm. Like he's supposed to be sinister. Like he's a sinister dude, even though he's goofy looking with the big nose, and like he looks kind of like a messed up Dr. Robotnik, but like at the same time, he's supposed to be like, right. He's still supposed to be like sinister.
Yeah.
And I kind of want the same thing with Mrs. Treats, to like kind of like, "Oh, how you doing, honey?" And like make you feel off, like, ooh, she's like,
something's wrong, but
something's wrong here. And then maybe see that like switch up, like, so like in one run you might get him, and then one run you might get her, and kind of have it like switch off.
Yeah. So your last little wish list item, what do you like? What's the number one thing you're like, I don't know if it'll happen, but
I want them to do something unique with that break, because it's in the Fast and the Furious house, right? Like that's what this one is.
It is, but I don't know how I think they're laying it out different. So I don't know the route this is going to take now.
If it does what it did before the last couple of years, where it kind of breaks off and you leave the building and then you go back in the building, if you're doing that, I want it to be unique and like maybe done up a way that like doesn't feel like you're just going from one section to the next. Like last year in the Chucky house, it just didn't really work. It felt like they were two separate houses, and even though they weren't. And then obviously the year before it was a little bit easier because two different movies. It's supposed to obviously kind of be broken up like that.
Yeah.
But since this is one house, if they're not changing it where you're staying inside the whole time, I want them to at least like do something unique with that break. Whether that means dressing up that little inside, the little middle part there, or make it feel like you're going from like the factory to a warehouse, and kind of like doing that transition. I don't know, something along those lines, but I just don't want it to feel, because I feel like that kind of it not take you out of it, but like it breaks it up. Like a house is supposed to be like boom, 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 like it hits you every few moments in a continuous house, and this one kind of feels like that break in the middle kind of throws me off, I guess is my point.
It does, yeah. It definitely creates an unnecessary pause, from whether that's scares, tension, laughter, whatever it may be. It does break it up, and it does, unless you stick something in there, it doesn't feel like conjoined, I guess.
Right.
But for my wish list item, we're obviously getting this new character named Taffy. I want him to be in a Taffy room. I think you have to have him in a Taffy building style room if his name is Taffy. And I hope we see a lot of him, because his character design looks really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps up our first episode for our 1 week until HHN Podathon. Again, thank you so much for everyone who's checking us out. Tomorrow, you can catch us here again, same old spot. You know where to find us. Here. And we're going to be discussing how to HHN33. So we're just going to give you some of our best practices for how to attack this event. But we'll also be adding in our wait time over and under guesses. And we will also be hitting upon our underperform or overachieve on the houses and as well. So that way it's not just a beginner's guide. So that way, if you are a veteran of HHN, you might not need all these tips and tricks, but I think they're still helpful nonetheless. But there is still some stuff in that episode for you as well. So you can kind of see where we're at thinking for what these houses are going to be wait time wise and what we think is actually going to achieve or not achieve and all that nonsense. So until next time, which is tomorrow, this is Nick.
This is Seamus.
Happy Hans.
It's cursed. Cursed. It's got a death curse.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare.
And again, I would just like to thank Vampire Stepdad for letting us use his music for our intro and outro music. So if you would, just go check him out. Spotify, Facebook. Again, that is Vampire Stepdad.